Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for coming. So, who am I? Let me introduce myself. I'm Tomas Pizarro. I'm a telecommunications engineer. I studied in the University of Seville, and I specialize in computer science. I've been working for Bitnami for the last 5 years. Bitnami now is part of VMware in the last spring. And this is where you can find me. You can find me in GitHub. I'm Tom Pizarro there, also in LinkedIn and on the Kubernetes Slack. So my background in Bitnami has been creating production-ready assets for several platforms. This is single VMs, multi-TS, container, Helm charts. And apart from creating these assets, I also take care of maintaining them. This means update the components, fix the bugs reported by the users, and also reply some support cases. And I'm here to talk you about distributed repositories for Helm charts. Helm was designed thinking on distributed repositories since the beginning. We know this because of the Helm command line. You have options to list repositories, to add and to remove them. But it is only added one repository by default. This is the stable repository from the GitHub Helm stable repo. This made people think that this repository is the repository where you should be looking for charts. However, with Helm 3, we know that we are moving away from this unique place to install charts, and we want people to start creating and maintaining their own chart repository. In fact, if you try to add a new repository to the stable repository, you get a warning warning you, think twice before adding your Helm chart to this repository, because probably in 1 year it's not going to be maintained, and it's encouraging people to maintain their own repositories. At Bitnami, we have more than 50 charts. More or less half of them are in the stable repository, and the other half are in the own Bitnami repository, that is GitHub Bitnami charts. So we wanted to share how we maintain this catalog of applications, because maintaining 50 charts up to date is not easy. First of all, these are the 4 main points that you will need to solve in order to have your repository maintained. You need a place where you are going to host your charts. You need to test your charts. If you want that users use your chart, you need to guarantee that they pass a set of tests, that they have a level of quality. You need to maintain them, because you need to update the Docker images that they're using. You need to fix security issues, and you also need to keep adding feedback. You need to keep adding user feedback and implementing new features. And finally, you need to publish them. Maybe publish is not the best word to describe this latest point, because as long as your chart is in the host, is in the chart repository, is already installable. But what I want to say here is that you need to make your chart discoverable for the community. So first of all, host your charts. You have plenty of options here. It's really easy. The requirements for storing charts are very cheap. You just need a web server that is capable of serving a YAML file and gzip tarbals. And some of the most common options is using AWS S3 buckets, JFrog Artifactory, Google Cloud Storage, or even ordinary web servers like Apache or Nginx. And you also have the option to self-host your charts on your own infrastructure using applications like Chart Museum or Harbor, which Harbor basically is using Chart Museum under the hood. Let me stop a minute to talk about Harbor, because apart from being a chart repository, it's also a Docker registry, so you can use the same application to store your charts and store the Docker images that are going to be used in your charts. You can get CV scanning for your images, because Harbor it's integrates with Claire. And you can also sign your Docker images because it integrates with Notary Server. So it is a really cool application with such a nice features. The second point to maintain your repository of charts is testing, and for me is the most important one. I'm going to tell you the different kind of tests that we do at Bitnami in our release pipeline. We use Jenkins to build and release our Docker images and also our Helm charts. And we do a different kind of test, since some really basic one to another that are more complex. So the basic one is run Helm template while you are developing a Helm chart, or wherever you made a change. It's really fast to run Helm template and detect syntax issues on your YAML files. So if you forgot to close a curly brace or something like that, you will get a early error. The same that you can run Helm template, you can use Helm install with the dry run option, and the output is very similar. However, if the Helm template it doesn't give you any error, it doesn't mean that the Helm chart can be deployed on your Kubernetes cluster. So at the end, you are going to need to run Helm install and wait until the pods are running, until all the deployments are in a stable state. But this isn't enough, because you may be interested on installing the same chart using different configurations. So for example, the MongoDB chart, you can install it in a standalone mode, and you will get just one server of MongoDB, or you can install it as a replica set mode, and you will get a stateful set for the primary server, a stateful set for the secondary, and the same for the arbiters. For example, you may need to install WordPress using different kind of services, and you want that the application is accessible no matter how you configure the service. Or you may be interested on deploying the chart with or without persistent, depending on your environment. Up to this point, we have all this testing automatically in the stable repository in the GitHub Helm charts. Whenever you submit a pull request, all of this is already done, or basically the same. You have the Helm linked. You can install the chart and get the output of the command. If you have a test folder there with different values YAML file, you can get these different scenarios that I was talking about before. But in Bitnami, we go beyond that. Having the pods running, having the deployment in a stable state, it doesn't mean that the application is properly configured. For example, you can have a service not exposing a port. You can have wrong labels in a deployment. At the end, the application is not working unless it's not working, although the deployment is stable. So we run verification test and functional test. In verification test, we check things like that important files and binaries exist, that the configuration file is in the proper path, that basic functionality of the application works fine. If it is a database, we check that we can create databases, that we can insert data, we can query it, stuff like this. And for functional test, this is basically for applications that have a web server, that have a web interface. We run some test that emulates the user navigation through the web page, login, logout, creating users, adding posts, that kind of things. So this is the output of the verification test for the MySQL chart, I think. The MySQL chart is in the Bitnami chart repository, but we have the MariaDB chart that is practically the same in the stable one. And we are checking, for example, those things. We are checking that all the libraries and the binaries doesn't have any missing dependencies. So we are running LDD commands to check that all the libraries are included in the container. We check that the main binaries are included in the path. We check the basic functionality of the application. In this case, MySQL. We are creating databases. We are inserting data. We can delete the database, etc. also we check that we have configured a password, or that the user is not root. The user is specifically 1001, and all this kind of checks. And this will be the output for the functional test. This is an example of the WordPress Helm chart. And this test is just adding a post. For adding a post, you need to go to the login page, add your user and your password, click on the new post, click on the new post link, add the title, add the form, add the body of the form, and submit it. And this is in an automated process. Also, during this process, we are taking a screenshot. So in case something fails, we can easily detect where is the issue. We know if a selector has changed in the application. We know if we have included a wrong password or that kind of stuff. So these are the screenshots that the user gave us at the end. We have login. We have reached the administration page. We create the post, we add in the title and the body, and finally we click in publish, and we get all the screenshot and the data populated. And finally, this is the latest kind of test that we just added to our pipeline. We added more or less 2 months ago or so. And it's Helm. We are testing the Helm upgrades. We know that upgradability is super important in Helm, and we want to guarantee that Helm upgrade works for charts inside the same minor or patch version. We know that for major changes, probably some manual steps are required before or after running the upgrade, but inside the same major version, we want to guarantee that the upgrade works. This is what we do to test the Helm upgrades. For example, imagine I want to release a new version of the WordPress chart that is 7.2.2. I will do the following. First, I will install the base chart that will be the minimum chart inside the same major version. So I will install WordPress 7.0.0. I will populate data in this chart using some script similar to the test that we saw before to create the post. So I will create posts, I will create users, I will install plugins, things that should be persisted after the upgrade. I will upgrade to the version that I want to release, and I will check that all the data that I included in the first version it still exists. And apart from that, I will run the verification and functional test for the WordPress applications. So in this way, we guarantee that the Helm upgrade works fine from the minimum version inside that major version to the one that I'm going to release. Next tip, deploy to several clusters. You may think that if you have tested your chart on a Kubernetes cluster, it's going to work the same way in another one, but we found that this is not true. In Bitnami, we provide containers and Helm charts to several cloud providers, Google, Azure, VMware, Oracle, IBM, AWS, and each of these cloud providers has their own Kubernetes service. And we realized that there are some differences between these services, and we had to adapt our charts or fix some things or make some options in the chart so they are installable in these new Kubernetes clusters. So, for example, we have detected that the default storage provider for Azure was not getting along with Magento in terms of the number of files that Magento has and running chmod, chown operations when these files are persisted. The Helm chart, the Kubernetes was killing the pod before the containers gets to a stable state, because changing the permissions was so slow that the liveness and readiness proof was killing the container. Next thing, the IBM Kubernetes service does not support security context by default. So all of our Kubernetes charts that are for infrastructure components like Redis, MongoDB, or MySQL, MariaDB, all of them run as non-root, and we need security context to configure the permissions of the volume. So if the security context is not working fine, we need to add an init container that is running as root and is changing the permission of this volume before the main pod starts. And finally, OpenShift that runs all the containers as non-root, so your Helm charts will be compatible with it. This is for testing. The third point now, maintain your charts. It is really important to maintain the Docker images up to date, not only to get the latest features from these Docker images and to get the latest bug fixes, but also for security. You cannot keep adding features to your chart, but forget about the Docker images that you are using there. You have to update them from time to time. And a very important point, apply user feedback and listen to your users. If you are donating your charts to the community, please invest time reviewing the issues, reviewing the pull requests, because you will increase the quality of your health charts by listening to your users. You will get the bug fixes, new features. They will help you identify issues in their own environment that you don't realize on your testing environment, and you can improve the charts a lot with this. Here you are seeing a couple of columns of a Trello board. In Bitnami we use Trello as our support board. We have several support sources. We have GitHub issues and pull requests for containers and for Helm charts. We have a community forum. We have a customer help desk. We have a Stack Overflow, a couple of mailing lists. And every day we check all the sources of support and we reply to this user. So this is something that it takes a lot of time to us to maintain our more than 50 charts. And we are doing it, and we are getting a lot of benefit from doing it. Other tips. Avoid using rolling tags on your charts, otherwise the chart is not immutable, and if you push a new version of your rolling tag, you can break the chart. Document every major change in the README, and also I find it really useful to document how to access the chart, no matter how you configure the service, no matter if you configure as node port, cluster IP, ingress, or load balancer. For me, it's really helpful to have that instructions in the node.txt. Validate user inputs as much as you can. For example, if you know that a clustered version of an application doesn't support more than 5 replicas, don't let the user put more than 5 in the replica count and this kind of stuff. Or if you know that an application has some requirement for the password, validate the password before it gets to the application. And finally, if you plan to maintain several Helm charts, it's not only one or two, you are going to have a full catalog. Create a checklist, because it's going to help you with the consistency of all your Helm charts, and it will maintain them. It will be more easy, because you can apply batch changes to all of them if all of them are consistent. And the latest point, make your charts available to everyone. Here are a couple of options. The first one is the Helm Hub that has been already presented this morning. It is a platform where you can see a bunch of repositories added, not only the stable and the incubator. The Bitnami one is over there, and a lot of others. This is going to be where Helm version 3 it will search for the chart. You can install directly if your chart is already here. And adding your repository here is really easy. You just need to send a pull request to that repository, adding the repository name and your base URL to that config repo -values YAML file, and your contact information to the repos.yaml. But before your repositories are added to the Helm Hub, they should fulfill this expectation, a series of requirements. They should have a maintainer in the chart.yaml. They should pass the Helm lint, and they should be installable and upgradable in all community supported versions of Kubernetes. The notes.txt should contain useful information about how to use the application or how to access regarding the kind of service that you used, and the chart version should be immutable. The next product to make your charts available is CubeApps. CubeApps is like an in-cluster version of the Helm Hub. It's something that you install on your cluster. You allow the user of your cluster to discover and install the applications directly from the web page. So, for example, you will see that the dashboard is really similar to the Helm Hub. That is because both projects are based on the same one, that is monocular. When you deploy an application from CubeApps, you get the values.yaml, so you can customize your deployment before you install it on your chart, on your cluster, sorry. And finally, you get this page where you can manage the chart. You can delete it, you can upgrade it, you get the URLs for your service, and you get the notes.txt with all the useful information there. Finally, you can also make your charts discoverable if you submit them to a cloud provider marketplace. For example, Azure has their own container or chart marketplace, and so does VMware. Just to wrap up as conclusions, the fourth thing that I talk here, it has been about hosting your charts, testing your charts, maintaining your charts, and make them discoverable. So regarding hosting your charts, you know there are a lot of options. Just be aware of them and select which one better fits your needs. Regarding the testing, test as much as you can. Invest time updating the components and listening to your users, applying feedback. And finally, regarding publishing, add your repo to the Helm Hub. And that's all. Questions?
So one of the problems that we have faced is when we are developing Helm charts for our own code, there are three things that you need to tie together. One is the git sha of the code itself, then the Docker image tag, and then the Helm chart version. So do you have like suggestions on, or through your experience, what's the best way to tie these three things together?
Well, actually, in Bitnami, we just dance with two versions, that are the application versions and the chart version, because we don't create the application, so we don't have that SHA that you talk about. So I don't know what are exactly the problems that you got with these three.
I mean, it just for traceability purpose, you need to know all the three things.
Yeah. So just use immutable tags. So you know that for this specific version of the chart is including this specific version of the Docker image that is including this specific commit of your code. Yeah.
What are you using for input validation, and how are you informing the user if it fails?
Go templates in the helper YAML.
So are you then like using fail?
I think we are printing errors and then fail if it doesn't fit the validation. More questions? Okay, thank you.
Just want to tweet here. Sorry?
Ja, er komt dus een open source naam van Microsoft. Jessica Dien, misschien heb je die naam wel eens gehoord. Die is
excellent. I find it. It's funny. You've Tomas. So in Irish, we have Tomas as well. With a fada, it's like an acute French. You know, so T-O-M. Fada, yeah. It's very, very similar. Like, yeah. So you have an accent there, yeah. So in Irish, it's the exact same. There's an accent there, so it insinuates the A. Like, yeah. But thanks for the talk. It was a lovely talk. Take care.
Thanks for the useful talk. You mentioned you were working on telecoms. I was wondering how much are you seeing people deploying antennas and stuff? You mentioned you were a telecoms engineer. How much are you seeing people using?
Moet ik mijn tas inpakken, want dit weekend ga ik op vakantie. Dan ben ik hier klaar vrijdag. Dan rijd ik naar de andere kant van Nederland. Die vrienden in een huisje zitten. Waarschijnlijk drink ik 1 biertje en ook zo.
Because the company I work for, we're building
Ja, nog wel echt hier niet speels.
I was wondering how much
Voordat jullie daar weer ook gaan